That evening, a remarkable thing happened. Grevin offered London's most notorious criminal a deal. "Become my informant," he suggested, "and you'll get a lighter sentence." Adams' reply was even more surprising. "You're on," he said. When he finally came to trial here at Beckenham Crown Court, Adams was convicted on 22 separate counts of robbery, demanding money with menaces, assault with a deadly weapon, malicious wounding, and grievous bodily harm, and sentenced to 35 hours community service. Superintendent, do you not think that the sentence Adams received should perhaps have been a little heavier?
Oh, no. From a police point of view, we would have preferred a much lighter sentence, actually. It was extremely difficult to guarantee his safety whilst he was cleaning out that canal.
35 hours of community service after his conviction, his debt to society paid, Billy Pavingstone Adams embarked on his new career as a supergrass. This he appears to have done with some relish.
He loved it. Went through this stupid bloody phase of changing his identity every day. Drove me mad. Sometimes, you know, we'd go to a party. I couldn't remember who the bloody hell I was supposed to be. I had to be his brother once, with a bloody beard.
Presumably these changes of identity were thought necessary to protect him from his new enemies in the underworld?
Maybe. I think he just was never satisfied with who he was. He kept asking them to make him an admiral. They said that'd be a bit too conspicuous. And of course it would have been. You don't see many admirals marching into banks with a sawn-off shotgun, do you?
So, I'm sorry, could I just clarify this? Are you saying that he was continuing to rob banks at the time?
Well, of course. It's the only thing he knew how to do.
So effectively he was betraying the trust the police had placed in him?
Oh, yes, granted. That was the other thing he knew how to do. Been doing it to me for years.
Betraying your trust?
Mucking about with other women. Of course, once he became a supergrass, he had excuse, didn't he? He used to say it was all part of his front. Mind, I wasn't fooled. I knew which part of his front he was talking about.
Superintendent Carter, what is your view of the allegation that long after he had become a supergrass, Adams continued to operate as a criminal?
Well, that in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. At least it meant that the information he was giving to us was slap bang up to date.
So you're not concerned that he was committing crimes even while he was a police informant?
It was probably necessary on occasion for him to play along with a gang so as to gain their confidence.
But it's our information that he was the leader of these gangs.
Well, I can't think of a better way of gaining a gang's confidence, can you? Of success. But who had issued that summons? The answer, Inspector Robbins discovered, was Detective Chief Inspector David Grevin. Grevin's story was that he had been in the area on a routine liaison matter, and in the loneliness of his hotel room that evening, he had suddenly craved a Masonic ceremony. Whatever Inspector Robbins thought of this explanation, he was forced to suspend judgment when Grevin told him he had already arrested 2 men for the robbery. Both of them were London men, and both of them, remarkably, had been at the 1985 criminal underworld wedding that Grevin had attended. In fact, one of them, Mickey Hall, had been the bridegroom. The other, a family friend, was Terry Marples. The reason he had had them arrested, Grevin said, was because of information he had received from, quote, a highly reliable source. Despite this so-called breakthrough, none of the valuables stolen in the robbery were ever recovered. Where were they?
They were in my bloody bath for weeks, and all over the floor. Every time I stepped out of bed, I put my foot on a bloody great diamond. You ever done that?
No.
No, well, it's bloody painful, I can tell you. Carpet was covered in them. Jewellery everywhere. Silverware everywhere. Oil paintings, tapestries, gold statues. The place looked like a bloody tip.
And yet, despite the fact that your husband, Billy Adams, was a known associate of both Marples and Hall, he was never taken in for questioning, and the only policeman who came to see him was Detective Chief Inspector Grevin.
That's right. And he only come round to give him the reward money for grassing Mickey and Terry. I couldn't believe it. Another great big bundle of notes. Oh, yes, I said. And where do you expect me to put them? Toilet don't flush properly as it is. Now, go on, take them away. I don't want them in here, I said. Neither of them paid any attention to me. Too busy laughing at the mugshots Grevin had brought round the other 2 poor sods. Of course, in the end, Billy did take it all away. Trouble was, bastard went with it, didn't he?
Adams left his wife to live with this woman, Christine Marples, herself a convicted mugger and the wife of Terry Marples, the man he had just informed on. When news of this reached Terry Marples, on remand, it was too much for him. He asked to see Inspector Robbins, and then, while Robbins listened, Marples described in convincing detail the part played in the robbery by both Billy Adams and Detective Chief Inspector David Grevin.